Welcome to today's deep dive. So I want you to imagine, if you will, that you've just stepped off this really long-haul flight.
Right, you're exhausted, jet-lagged.
Exactly. And you step out into the thick, just inescapable tropical heat of Singapore.
Oh yeah, the humidity is like a physical wall.
It really is. It hits you instantly. It's this heavy blanket of air. And you're making your way toward the gleaming heart of the city center.
Getting closer to the bay.
Right. And looming over that immaculate skyline, just completely dominating the horizon, is one of the most recognizable, architecturally audacious structures on the planet.
The Marina Bay Sands.
The Marina Bay Sands. I mean, it looks almost like a gleaming futuristic spaceship,
Exactly.
or perhaps a massive metallic surfboard resting effortlessly across three towering curved pillars.
Pillars that seem to just defy gravity entirely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you walk up to this glittering facade, leaving the sweltering heat behind as the massive automatic doors slide
And
open.
you get that blast of cold air.
Oh, that perfect blast of chilled, meticulously filtered air conditioning washes right over you. And in that moment, you think you're walking into a high-end entertainment venue, right?
It's a luxury resort.
You think you're stepping into a world of like James Bond-style glamour, an oasis of hospitality designed for a luxurious vacation.
A place to let off some steam, have a little fun.
Exactly. But the mission of our deep dive today is to take that exact image, shatter it completely, and prove to you that you are actually walking into a perfectly calibrated, ruthlessly optimized machine.
A machine designed for one thing.
Yes, one singular, uncompromising purpose: the extraction of wealth based entirely on the mathematical exploitation of human frailty.
It's a sobering thought.
It really is. We are looking at a hyper-analytical, frankly aggressive autopsy report of this exact casino, provided by a stack of highly detailed sources. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, setting the correct analytical stance right from the beginning is paramount, if we're actually going to understand the true nature of this space.
Right, because if you go in thinking it's just a hotel, you're already behind.
Exactly. If you walk into that building conceptualizing it as a vacation spot or resort or a playground, you have already lost the game before the first card is even dealt.
The house is already won.
Yeah. The source material we're examining today actively refuses to treat this as a hospitality review. It functions, as you aptly called it, as a clinical autopsy report.
An autopsy of a living, breathing monster.
That's the perfect way to phrase it. We must completely ignore the superficial stuff, the crystal chandeliers, the plush carpets, the smiling staff.
All the glitter.
All of it. Instead, we are looking exclusively at the gears of profit and behavioral control that are just grinding furiously beneath that gilded facade.
So what's our objective with these sources today?
Our objective is to break down this vastly complex ecosystem into its fundamental component parts. We'll be applying rigorous analytical lenses drawn directly from game theory, behavioral economics, and systems theory.
Wow, so we are getting really granular here.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to expose the cold clinical mechanics of an environment where every single square inch of physical space, every precise decibel of ambient sound, and every microsecond of human interaction is engineered for maximum frictionless financial extraction.
Which brings us right to the very first point of contact, the front doors.
A gateway.
Right, because the reality is the extraction process and the psychological conditioning, it begins before you even have the opportunity to place a bet or order a drink.
It starts at the threshold.
Exactly. Our sources point out that simply to enter the gaming floor of the Marina Bay Sands, you are forced to go through a highly specific, mandated screening process.
It's not just walking into a lobby.
No, not at all. You actually have to hand over your physical government-issued passport. Or if you happen to be a local resident, you're required to scan your SingPass ID.
Which is a huge deal.
It is. For those who don't know, the SingPass is essentially the comprehensive digital identity and centralized data system for the entire country of Singapore.
It connects to practically everything in a citizen's life.
Right. Now, while they are scanning your absolute most sensitive identification, the security personnel simultaneously require you to check any large bags.
So no backpacks allowed.
You absolutely cannot bring a large backpack or a duffel bag onto the casino floor. But here is the massive contradiction that our source text highlights, and I really want to push back on the logic here.
Go ahead.
They do not conduct a physical body search.
No metal detectors.
Right. They aren't putting you through a millimeter wave scanner.
Yeah.
And they aren't patting you down.
So it's not like the airport.
No.
Yeah.
So if this organization is so incredibly worried about security that they refuse to let a backpack through the doors, Why are they only banning the bags and totally ignoring what people might have in their pockets?
It feels like a disconnect.
Isn't that a staggering, massive blind spot? I mean, if someone truly wanted to bring a concealed weapon into that crowded space in their waistband, they easily could. It seems like a massive failure of security protocol.
Well, it only appears as a failure of security protocol if you're operating under a fundamental misunderstanding of what the casino's operational matrix actually defines as a threat.
Wait, a threat? How else do you define a threat beside a weapon?
We have to elevate our perspective here. We need to view this through the lens of systems theory, specifically focusing on the concept of the digital handshake.
The digital handshake. Okay, what does that mean in this context?
The identification check at the door has absolutely nothing to do with physical security in the way the general public conceptualizes it.
So it's not about physical safety at all.
Not really, no. It is not about stopping a common thug or preventing a physical altercation on the floor. The precise millisecond you hand over that passport or scan that digital SingPass ID, your anonymity is entirely irreversibly eradicated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You cease to be a random autonomous face in a sea of tourists. You instantly become a trackable, highly quantifiable data point in their centralized mainframe.
So they know everything about who just walked in.
Oh, everything. Your nationality, your exact age, your specific demographic profile, and your exact time of entry are permanently logged.
So it's not a bouncer checking an ID to ensure you are of legal drinking age.
Exactly. It is a massive industrial-scale data harvesting operation disguised as a simple age check.
So it's essentially an intelligence gathering checkpoint before you even see a roulette wheel.
That's exactly what it is.
If we think about how that works in other industries, it feels a lot like how we interact with technology companies, right?
The parallel to big tech is actually the most accurate framework to understand this.
Because we trade our data for access all the time, almost without thinking about it, like with Facebook or Google.
Think about the operational models of ubiquitous social media platforms or search engine monopolies. You, the user, willingly trade an incredibly invasive profile of your life.
Your minute-by-minute location history.
Your location, your nuanced political inclinations, your entire social and professional network, the contents of your private messages. And you trade all of that in exchange for what is marketed as a free service.
But it's not actually free.
No, in that ecosystem, you are not the customer. Your data is the product being sold to advertisers.
Right, the classic saying, if the product is free, you are the product.
Precisely. Well, the casino executes an identical transaction at its threshold, but the exchange here is even more stark.
How so?
Because you trade your absolute anonymity for the mere privilege of entering a space designed to take your money.
Wow, that's dark.
Both social media conglomerates and the mega casino are vast intelligence-gathering operations operating under the extremely thin disguise of consumer services.
So they need the ID to build the profile.
They need to know exactly who you are to build a predictive behavioral profile, to track the velocity of your spending, and crucially, to flag your profile instantly if your statistical behavior ever deviates from the established norm.
The norm of a consistent losing player. Okay, that makes sense. That explains the aggressive data harvesting at the door. But that still leaves my original problem completely unresolved.
The bags.
Yeah, the bags. If they already have all my demographic data and my identity locked into their system, why are they so intensely paranoid about my backpack?
It does seem weird on the surface.
Why confiscate the bag but ignore the pockets? I mean, what's the logic there?
To understand the backpack ban, we really must dissect the concept of security theater. It's a term often associated with the airport TSA.
Oh, like taking off your shoes and the liquid bands.
Right, the elaborate, exhausting ritual of airport security. Removing your shoes, limiting liquids to 3 ounces, the dramatic full-body scans.
It's largely designed to manufacture the psychological feeling of safety, right?
Exactly. It establishes the absolute unquestioned authority of the state over the traveler's body, all while frequently failing red team tests regarding actual functional threats.
So the casino bag check is a version of that.
The casino's bag check is a masterclass in a fundamentally different kind of security theater. The source text points out the apparent hypocrisy you mentioned, banning large bags while ignoring body searches.
Because they aren't looking for weapons.
Why? Because the casino's risk management architecture is not fundamentally trying to stop a mass shooter. They are aggressively trying to stop a mass winner.
A mass winner. Wow. That is a fascinating shift in priorities. What exactly constitutes a mass winner in a game of chance?
Well, a mass winner is an individual, or more likely a highly organized syndicate, utilizing what the industry calls advantage play.
Advantage play. So cheating or just using math?
A mix of both, really. Now, ask yourself, what actually goes into a large duffel bag or a heavy backpack in this context?
Not a bomb.
It isn't a bomb. It is sophisticated, collaborative cheating equipment. We're talking about covert, high-powered servers, extended battery packs.
Like mini computers.
Yes, and specialized microscopic cameras used by networked teams of advantage players to run staggeringly complex card-counting algorithms, or roulette tracking physics engines in real time.
Oh, so they literally compute the odds on the fly and relay it to the player.
Exactly. A handgun tucked into a waistband is an undeniable human tragedy, but it absolutely does not threaten the fundamental mathematical revenue model of a multi-billion-dollar gaming corporation.
A tragedy doesn't bankrupt the casino.
But a team of math prodigies equipped with hidden computing power in a backpack absolutely does threaten that model. It threatens to invert the house edge.
It messes with their bottom line.
Therefore, their priority is entirely aligned with their bottom line, not with preserving human life. The entire security perimeter is designed to protect the math, not the meat.
When you lay it out like that, it just strips away all the illusion of hospitality. It's incredibly dark, but it makes total, terrifying logical sense.
It's purely rational from a corporate standpoint.
And knowing that the casino is aggressively guarding its mathematical edge leads us directly into the atmosphere on the floor itself.
The environment inside.
Right. Once you are past that digital handshake, you're inside. And there's a strict, aggressively enforced rule covering every square inch of the casino floor. Absolutely no photography, no video recording whatsoever.
None. They're militant about it.
Our source text contains this brilliant, incisive quote that really anchored this concept for me. It says, "Anything that doesn't allow photography is 10 times out of 9 something that cannot see the light of day."
That's a powerful statement.
So why is this simple act of taking a selfie such an existential threat to this massive machine? I mean, people take selfies everywhere on vacation.
That specific quote really captures the foundational truth of all asymmetric power structures. The uncompromising no photography rule is not about protecting the privacy of high-profile guests.
Even though that's what they always say, right?
Yeah. Right. That is just the public relations excuse often provided. It is actually the absolute cornerstone of the casino's single greatest, most devastating weapon against the player.
What is?
Information asymmetry.
Okay, information asymmetry. Break that down for me.
The casino floor is deliberately constructed to operate as a perfect black box.
Like on an airplane.
Somewhat, but
Okay.
in this case, inside this highly controlled box, the house operates with near-perfect information.
They know the odds.
They possess the exact computationally verified mathematical edge, calculated down to the 10,000th of a decimal point of every single game variation on that floor.
And they know what you're doing.
Yes, they are meticulously tracking your individual betting patterns, your wins, and your losses via those digital membership systems. They're analyzing your physical movements and emotional states through thousands of high-definition cameras.
So they have all the data.
All of it. You, the player, on the other hand, are forced to operate with deliberately, aggressively incomplete information.
Because if I can pull out my phone and take photos or record video, I can start gathering my own raw data to analyze later.
Exactly.
I could start building my own model of their environment.
That is the exact fear driving the policy. Photography is not just capturing a memory, it is high-fidelity data capture.
Data is a weapon.
And in this incredibly hostile environment, data is a weapon that can be wielded directly against the house's sacred mathematical edge.
What kind of data could a player even gather, though?
Well, if players were permitted to film, advantage syndicates could record and document specific dealer shuffling techniques over hundreds of hours. They could feed that footage into machine learning models and find exploitable mechanical flaws.
Like if a dealer has a tell or a sloppy shuffle.
Precisely. They could map the exact physical coordinates of specific high-variance machine types. They could record the nuanced shift changes and fatigue levels of the staff.
Or, like we mentioned before, having off-site teams.
Right. They could organize remote teams who sit off-site, analyzing a live video feed, relaying mathematical instructions to the player at the table through a hidden earpiece.
So banning the cameras just shuts all of that down instantly.
By instituting a total, uncompromising ban on photography, the casino is essentially enforcing a unilateral disarmament treaty on every single person who walks through that door.
It's corporate espionage prevention on a massive scale. The way you describe it, it sounds exactly like how hyper-competitive financial institutions guard their trading secrets.
The comparison to high-frequency trading, or HFT, on Wall Street is arguably the most precise analogy available here.
How does that map onto the casino?
Well, these massive, multi-billion-dollar financial firms will literally spend hundreds of millions of dollars to bore straight-line tunnels through solid mountains simply to lay private fiber optic cable.
Blue Mountains, just for cable.
Yes, why? All to receive market pricing data a few microscopic fractions of a millisecond faster than their competitors.
Because speed is money.
They guard their proprietary trading algorithms with physical and digital security that rivals the defense protocols of sovereign nations. Their entire existence, their billions in quarterly profit, is predicated entirely on possessing an information advantage, no matter how slight.
And if they lose that advantage,
The very microsecond that information asymmetry vanishes, their profit evaporates. The mega casino is structurally identical to a high-frequency trading firm, with the only difference being that it executes its high-volume trades with physical cards and dice instead of digital stock tickers.
so secrecy is the mechanism that enforces the edge.
Absolutely.
I also think about it in terms of branding and intellectual property, like the Coca-Cola formula. It's famously locked in a vault in Atlanta, right?
That adds another vital layer to the analysis. The Coca-Cola recipe is one of the ultimate trade secrets of modern capitalism.
Nobody knows what's actually in it.
Right. That absolute secrecy prevents direct replication by competitors, ensures total market dominance, and crucially, creates a powerful psychological mystique around the product itself.
People are buying the mystery as much as the beverage.
Exactly. The casino's proprietary formula is its deeply researched, flawlessly integrated blend of psychological manipulation, mathematical certainty, and operational security.
So if you allow cameras,
Allowing an unrestricted proliferation of cameras in the casino would be the equivalent of Coca-Cola publishing their exact molecular recipe on a massive billboard in Times Square.
it ruins the whole thing.
It instantly demystifies the magic, exposes the cold clinical machinery of the extraction process, and permanently ruins the grand illusion that is absolutely required to keep the system functioning.
Okay, so let's take stock of where we are. We have willingly surrendered our identity at the door, and we have been unilaterally stripped of our ability to gather information.
We are fully in their world now.
Right. Now we are standing on the floor itself in what our sources aptly call the engine room. And I want to ask you, the listener, a direct question. Have you ever been to a casino, or even just played a friendly game of poker in a basement, and thought to yourself, I'm on a hot streak, the cards are falling my way, I can beat the odds today?
We've all felt that at some point.
It's human nature.
Yeah.
But our sources break down the brutal mathematical reality of why that feeling is a completely manufactured, temporary illusion. And to truly understand how this engine room operates, we really have to look closely at the demographic data the text provides.
The numbers are staggering.
They really are. The breakdown of the players at Marina Bay Sands is startlingly, specifically concentrated. 45% of the players are Chinese nationals, 45% are Singaporeans, who, the text notes, are overwhelmingly ethnic Chinese, and a mere 10% are categorized as other nationalities.
So 90% ethnic Chinese.
A staggering 90% of the individuals feeding their capital into this machine share a specific ethnic and cultural background. We need to unpack this.
We must approach this specific demographic data with absolute cold clinical detachment. We are looking at a system of optimization.
Okay, optimization of what?
The casino is, at its foundational core, a financial abattoir. The absolute, unshakable rule of its entire business model is that in the aggregate, the players must lose.
The aggregate meaning the collective total of everyone playing.
Yes. This is not an entertainment venue offering a fair, equitable game of chance. It is an incredibly complex system designed specifically to transfer massive amounts of wealth from the collective many to the corporate few.
Relying entirely and without exception on the law of large numbers.
Exactly.
So the age-old adage, the house always wins.
It's a cliche, certainly, but we need to elevate that cliche and explain exactly why and how the house always wins through the critical, often overlooked variable of time.
Time. Okay, how does time play into it?
The core operational equation of any casino is time multiplied by money. This is where the behavioral optimization becomes truly terrifying. The casino cannot simply design heavily rigged games that force you to lose all your money in 5 brutal minutes.
Right, because if I lose my entire budget in 5 minutes, I'm going to be furious.
If they execute that strategy, the psychological pain of the loss is too acute. You feel overtly cheated, you leave in disgust, and you never return. The perceived entertainment value collapses entirely.
You have to feel like you played a game.
Conversely, they cannot let you win for too long or even allow you to simply break even for an extended duration, because then the massive operational costs of running a billion-dollar facility quickly exceed their incoming revenue.
So the entire science of their game design is finding that exact perfect middle ground where you lose just slowly enough to enjoy it.
They must keep you actively churning your bets. They need you voluntarily exposing your capital to their slight but insurmountable mathematical advantage over and over and over again.
How do we visualize this?
Consider the fundamental physics of gravity. Gravity is a relentless, fundamental constant of the universe. When you walk into a casino and experience a lucky streak, you are essentially a person jumping up into the air.
For a brief, exhilarating moment, you feel like you're defying gravity.
You feel powerful, chosen by fate. But the house edge, that tiny 1% or 2% or 5% mathematical advantage the casino bakes into the rules of every single game, is gravity.
And gravity doesn't take breaks.
It never sleeps, it never tires.
Yeah.
No matter how high you jump, mathematical certainty dictates that you will eventually, inevitably, be pulled back down to earth.
So if you play long enough,
If you expose your money to that edge enough times, gravity will relentlessly pull your bankroll down to absolute zero.
it's just a matter of statistical inevitability. It's just a matter of how long you can manage to stay in the air before you crash.
Which brings us to the microwave oven analogy to explain how they control that crash.
A microwave oven.
Yes. How does a standard kitchen microwave actually work? It doesn't cook your food instantly by blasting it with open fire.
No, it heats it from the inside, right?
It bombards the water molecules within the food with highly specific frequencies of electromagnetic radiation, causing those molecules to vibrate furiously and generate internal heat over a carefully set period of time.
Okay, I follow you.
The modern mega casino is, in essence, a giant architectural microwave designed exclusively for your bankroll.
So all the stimuli in the room.
The flashing lights of the games, the ambient sound design, the constant influx of free drinks, they are all forms of radiation. They slowly, systematically cook the player's bankroll.
And if they cook it too fast?
If the casino applies too much heat, too fast meaning terrible, punishing odds and rapid, massive losses, the player burns out, feels the pain, and leaves the building.
But if they apply too little heat, the extraction process is terribly inefficient, and the casino leaves millions of dollars in potential profit on the table.
Exactly. The entire apparatus, every rule variation, every payout table is meticulously calibrated to apply the exact perfect amount of heat over the optimal duration of time to extract maximum capital before the player even realizes they have been fully cooked.
That perfectly explains the mechanical extraction. But how does that tie back into the incredibly specific demographic targeting? 90% ethnic Chinese. That cannot possibly be a random accident of geography.
It is the furthest thing from a coincidence. It is the ultimate result of exhaustive billion-dollar market segmentation and precise cultural targeting.
So they know exactly who is walking in.
The casino operates as an apex predator, and in this specific environment, it has identified a highly lucrative, culturally specific vulnerability in its preferred demographic prey.
What kind of vulnerability?
We are observing the systematic exploitation of a deep cultural vein. Within this specific demographic the text implies, there exists a historically rooted emphasis on concepts of luck, the significance of numerology, and the powerful pull of fate.
A culture leaning towards those concepts.
Yeah. Furthermore, there is a business culture that frequently normalizes and rewards high-stakes risk-taking. Crucially, there is the intense, omnipresent social importance of face or mianzi.
The concept of social standing and reputation within a group. How does a casino weaponize that?
By understanding that the concept of face can make it incredibly, overwhelmingly psychologically difficult for a player to simply stand up and walk away from a baccarat table during a brutal losing streak.
Because walking away looks like quitting or losing face.
Because within that cultural context, admitting defeat in a public setting, surrounded by peers or onlookers, carries a devastatingly heavy social cost.
So you keep playing to try and win your face back.
The casino's algorithms, floor layouts, and specific game designs act as a magnifying glass. They capture these latent cultural tendencies, amplify them, and weaponize them directly into staggering corporate profit.
It reminds me of the darkest chapters of the history of the tobacco industry.
A very grim, yet perfectly apt comparison. For decades, the major tobacco conglomerates didn't merely sell generic cigarettes to a broad public.
They ran highly targeted campaigns.
They deployed massive analytical resources to target highly specific demographics with hyper-tailored, weaponized marketing. They engineered slim, elegant cigarettes marketed directly at women's insecurities.
And ragged macho brands for men.
And infamously, they targeted specific minority communities with heavily mentholated products. They identified a pre-existing psychological or cultural desire and engineered a highly addictive toxic product to perfectly fictionlessly slot into that desire.
And the casino's doing the same thing.
The casino targets the cultural passion for gaming and risk within this specific 90% demographic with the exact same cynical, calculated precision.
Or, to bring it into the digital age, it sounds exactly like the mechanics behind those incredibly addictive mobile games on our smartphones today.
You are referring to gacha games, or the broader category of pay-to-win mobile economies.
Yeah, where you pay real money for virtual loot boxes.
It is vital to recognize that these digital ecosystems are explicitly, line by line, built upon the exact same behavioral frameworks pioneered on the casino floor.
They use all the same tricks.
They utilize intermittent variable rewards, manufactured social pressure, and crippling loss aversion to continuously hunt for what the gaming industry literally and unashamedly calls whales.
Whales, right. The people who spend the most.
The tiny fraction of a percent of users who possess the psychological vulnerability to spend tens of thousands of real dollars on completely intangible digital items.
It's wild.
The Marina Bay Sands is not doing anything different. It is simply a massive, physical, hyper-luxurious, high-roller version of a smartphone gacha game.
Okay, so we've established who the players are, these targeted individuals inside this massive engine room. But our source text outlines a fascinating dynamic. This isn't just a simple two-party system between the player and the omnipotent casino.
No, it's more complex than that.
The text describes a complex, closed ecosystem populated by three distinct groups. You have the players, the house, and the intermediaries.
The intermediaries.
Yeah, these intermediaries are described as underground money changers, point traders, people operating in a bustling gray market right there on the lush carpets of the casino floor.
Hiding in plain sight.
Now, I have to push back on this on behalf of our listeners. You just spent a considerable amount of time explaining how the casino is this omnipotent, ruthlessly optimized machine that strictly controls every single square inch and microsecond of the property.
That's true.
So if they're so powerful, why on earth do they allow these shady, unregulated intermediaries to operate openly right under their noses? Doesn't that siphon profit and control away from the house?
It seems like a contradiction until we shift our analytical framework. To understand this tolerance, we have to stop looking at the casino merely as a retail business and start analyzing it through the lens of ecological systems theory.
Okay, shifting to ecology.
We need to look at it as a complete biome. Let's use the analogy of a massive coral reef.
A coral reef. Okay, paint that picture for me. How does a marine ecosystem map onto a billion-dollar gambling floor?
A coral reef is a massive, entirely self-contained, closed ecosystem. In our analogy, the house, the casino itself, is the calcium carbonate coral structure.
This is the physical foundation.
It builds the massive physical environment, it firmly defines the boundaries of the space, and it aggressively dictates the absolute terms of survival for everything inside it.
And the players.
The players, the 90% demographic we just discussed, are the countless swirling schools of fish that swim into the reef every day. They are the raw biomass.
They bring the energy.
They bring fresh energy, which in this case is new capital, into the closed system. Now, what role do the intermediaries play?
Who were they in the reef?
They are the cleaner wrasse. They're the symbiotic organisms, the essential bottom feeders that thrive in the tiny overlooked gaps and crevices of the official rigid structure.
So they are actually providing a necessary service to the fish that the coral itself can't provide.
Precisely. These underground gray market money changers offer vital financial services that the highly regulated formal corporate structure of the casino either cannot legally offer or simply refuses to offer due to bureaucratic friction.
Like what kind of services?
Well, these intermediaries might offer slightly more favorable currency exchange rates for foreign cash. They allow desperate players to instantly bypass restrictive daily ATM or banking transfer limits.
Because the banks will cut you off, but the grain market won't.
Exactly. They provide a vital degree of absolute anonymity for high net worth individuals who want to aggressively avoid the digital handshake of the formal banking sector.
And they offer credit.
Crucially, they offer immediate off-the-books credit to players that the casino's own algorithms have deemed too risky and cut off. They are a living symptom of the friction inherent in the formal financial system.
I understand why the players use them, but again, why does the casino, the coral, tolerate their existence? If they're breaking the rules, why not just kick them out?
Because the entity running the casino possesses a masterful understanding of macroeconomics and liquidity. The house tolerates these gray market intermediaries because ultimately they facilitate the one thing the machine needs to survive:
Which is?
continuous, uninterrupted cash flow. Think of a scenario where a massive high roller from an overseas market wants to bet another $200,000.
Okay.
But his official international bank transfer is unexpectedly delayed by 48 hours due to a weekend or a compliance check.
The bank says no.
The casino cannot legally front him the cash, but the intermediary steps in, instantly fronts the cash at a premium, and allows the player to sit right back down and keep feeding the machine.
Wow.
As long as the clean arrests do not damage the structural integrity of the coral meaning, as long as they don't disrupt the primary massive flow of cash into the house's tables, the casino lets them live and operate. It is a highly calculated, deliberately blind-eyed symbiotic relationship.
That is a staggering realization.
Yeah.
They allow the gray market because it acts as a lubricant for the primary extraction engine.
Exactly. It keeps the gears turning.
But we shouldn't mistake tolerance for a lack of observation.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is still being intensely watched. The source text goes into deep, chilling detail about what it terms the regulatory or surveillance mechanisms of the casino.
The panopticon.
Right, which operate in what it describes as a three-tiered panopticon. Let's break that down, because this sounds like something out of a dystopian novel.
The panopticon is indeed the perfect, most accurate philosophical framework to apply here.
Where does that term come from?
The concept, which was originally designed by the English philosopher Jeremy Bentham for an idealized prison, is an architecture of total, inescapable control, where the inmates never know exactly when they are being watched.
So because they might be watched at any second.
Because the surveillance could be happening at any second, the inmates are psychologically forced to internalize the rules and constantly police their own behavior.
And the casino has 3 layers of this.
The casino's modern panopticon operates on 3 distinct, highly integrated, and terrifyingly efficient levels. First, you have the overt layer. This is the visible, smiling arm of the system.
We're talking about the human element. The dealers in the sharp suits, the floor managers.
Yes, the human infrastructure. The meticulously groomed dealers, the wait staff constantly offering free drinks, the floor managers pacing the aisles in their expensive suits.
They look like they're just there to help.
They are explicitly designed to appear hospitable, deeply helpful, and consummately professional. But make no mistake, their actual primary function is to rigidly enforce surface-level rules, keep the velocity of the game moving at peak, mathematical efficiency, and act as the first biological line of anomaly detection.
So they're like the neighborhood watch.
They are the friendly neighborhood beat cops walking the beat in this ecosystem, keeping the civilians calm while looking for anything out of the ordinary.
But as any good surveillance state knows, the beat cops aren't where the real terrifying power resides.
The real power is entirely invisible to the naked eye. It resides in the covert layer, the proverbial eye in the sky.
The cameras on the ceiling.
The source text specifically and pointedly mentions the incredible density of the camera network, describing golden surveillance domes spaced roughly every single meter across the massive ceilings.
Every single meter. That's insane.
But the truly chilling part is that it's no longer just bored human security guards watching banks of grainy monitors. The text explicitly cites the integration of advanced artificial intelligence.
The YOLO system.
Yes, specifically noting the use of YOLO. You only look once tracking algorithms. This is not passive recording. This is active, real-time, predictive behavioral analysis.
AI behavioral tracking in a casino. What does that actually look like in practice? How is an algorithm reading a human being at a card table?
It means the system is actively ingesting and interpreting physical reality in real time. It is constantly cross-referencing the physical biometric movements of your hands and body with the instantaneous digital betting data streaming from your membership card.
So they know exactly how you move when you bet.
The moment you sit down, it establishes a baseline of your normal, relaxed behavior. If your betting pattern suddenly shifts dramatically from a $10 average to a $1,000 bet, the algorithm flags it.
Okay, that makes sense.
But it goes deeper. If the visual AI detects a specific microexpression of stress or intense focus on your face when you increase that bet, or if it analyzes a dealer's physical mechanics and sees a slightly unusual repetitive hand motion that statistically correlates with a specific player winning at that exact table,
It catches it instantly.
it flags the anomaly instantly. This is the NSA of the casino floor. It is total, unblinking information awareness designed purely for industrial-scale financial risk management.
And if the AI flags you as a true threat to the math, you're introduced to the third and final layer of the panopticon.
The violent layer, the iron fist, every single system of total panoptic control ultimately, eventually rests on the implicit, undeniable threat of overwhelming physical force.
Who are these guys? Security guards or cops?
The source text questions whether the security apparatus is purely internal corporate security or state-backed police, and the terrifying, definitive answer is that the boundary between the two is entirely blurred, perhaps intentionally.
Because they work together.
The casino's massive internal security forces handle the immediate physical interdiction, physically detaining a suspected card counter in a back room or forcefully removing a highly disruptive, violent player from the floor.
But they have backup.
They operate with the heavy, implicit, and absolute backing of the sovereign state police. The casino is effectively operating as a sovereign economic zone, a walled garden with its own specific laws of physics and finance.
But within a state that supports it.
It is deeply nested within a powerful state that sanctions its existence and will violently, overwhelmingly enforce its boundaries if the casino's internal security ever requires escalation.
It sounds less like a business and more like a fully functioning, highly militarized espionage state.
We can crystallize this with our final analogy for this section, the Stasi.
The East German secret police.
Yes. The Ministry for State Security in East Germany operated on the fundamental philosophy of gathering a staggering, almost incomprehensible amount of granular data on every single one of its citizens.
They had files on everyone.
They built massive, labyrinthine files to map social networks, predict non-compliant behavior, and neutralize any hint of dissent before it ever even physically materialized.
And the casino does this with gamblers.
The modern mega casino operates on the exact same philosophical and operational principle. It utilizes absolute panoptic surveillance not merely to reactively catch someone slipping an extra chip onto the table, but to proactively, algorithmically map the psychological, emotional, and behavioral limits of its subjects.
So they stop you before you even start winning.
They ruthlessly neutralize any statistical threat to the absolute integrity of its profit model before the threat can even place a bet.
Here's where it gets really interesting, and this brings us to Section 5. And I have to admit, this is the part of the source material that genuinely made my jaw drop.
It's the core of it all.
We've talked about the data, the surveillance, and the psychology. But now we have to talk about the actual lifeblood of the machine, the money on the table, the architecture of the finance itself.
The reality of the bankroll.
Because the text points out a shocking, paradigm-shifting reality about the casino's bankroll. When you win a massive hand of blackjack, or when you hear those bells ring and hit a jackpot on the slot machine, you're not actually taking a single dime of the casino's money.
That's right.
The casino's core principle, its actual corporate wealth, is utterly, completely untouchable.
You have just articulated the golden rule of the entire multi-billion-dollar enterprise, the principle of the inviolate bankroll.
The inviolate bankroll.
The average mathematically illiterate player walks through those doors firmly believing they are engaged in a heroic financial duel with a massive faceless corporation.
Right. They think to themselves, if I win big tonight, if I take them for 100 grand, I am physically hurting the bottom line of the Las Vegas Sands Corporation.
This is a fundamental, deliberately engineered delusion. The casino's core capital is locked securely behind an impenetrable, mathematically verified fortress. You, as a player, are never, ever at risk of touching their actual money.
So if I'm not winning the casino's money, whose money am I actually putting in my pocket when I cash out a pile of chips?
You are winning the exact money that the deeply unfortunate gentleman sitting 2 tables over from you lost exactly 5 minutes ago.
Wait, really?
You are not playing against the house. You are playing against a carefully calculated, highly dynamic, constantly swirling pool of operating capital, or what the industry calls a float.
So they just gather everyone's money in a big pool.
This immense float is entirely 100% comprised of the collective, accumulated daily losses of the aggregate player base.
Wait, so the casino is just taking our money, holding it for a minute, and handing it back to a different person in the room?
Precisely. The casino is not a combatant in this financial war. It is the arms dealer, the referee, and the owner of the battlefield. It is merely a highly efficient broker.
Explain how that works practically.
When player A at the roulette table loses $100, that $100 instantly enters the float. When player B at the blackjack table wins $95, they are paid directly from that exact float.
Now, where did the missing $5 go?
That is the mathematical house edge. That is the non-negotiable commission the casino takes for graciously facilitating the rapid transfer of wealth between the two players.
So they just scrape off the top constantly.
They just sit comfortably in the middle of this massive swirling river of human capital, safely and endlessly siphoning off their guaranteed, mathematically certified percentage.
Let's ground this concept for the listener because it's a massive shift in how we understand gambling. How does this structure compare to, say, the global banking system?
That is the perfect framework. Analogy number 1, the fractional reserve banking system.
Okay, walk me through that.
When you receive your paycheck and deposit it into your traditional neighborhood bank, the bank does not take your physical cash, put it in a little wooden box with your name sharply written on it, and lock it safely in a vault waiting for you to return.
Which is what a lot of people subconsciously think happens.
But the moment you hand it over, your money becomes a liability on their balance sheet. The bank takes your cash, combines it with the deposits of hundreds of thousands of other customers, and immediately uses it as massive operating capital
To make more money.
to issue 30-year mortgages, fund auto loans, and back corporate debt, keeping only a tiny, legally mandated fraction in actual liquid reserve.
So the money isn't really there.
The number you see on your banking app is an illusion. It is just a digital promise. The casino operates identically. They ruthlessly utilize the collective, massive buy-in of the entire sprawling player ecosystem as the free, zero-interest capital required to pay out the statistical inevitability of the day's winners.
When you describe it as a system reliant entirely on continuous new influxes of capital to pay out returns, I mean, it almost sounds structurally identical to a Ponzi scheme.
Which forces us to examine analogy number 2. The legal Ponzi structure.
I know we have to be careful with that word.
I must be exceptionally painstakingly clear here from a strict legal and regulatory standpoint. A licensed casino is mathematically sound, heavily audited, heavily regulated, and completely unconditionally legal.
Right.
Whereas a Ponzi scheme is inherently fraudulent, mathematically doomed, and destined for catastrophic collapse. However, the actual mechanical flow of capital through both systems is structurally undeniably identical.
Because new money pays old money.
In a classic Ponzi scheme, like the one operated by Bernie Madoff, the operator utilizes the fresh money brought in by brand new, unsuspecting investors to pay the promised, fabricated returns to the earlier investors.
There's no real business happening.
There is absolutely no actual underlying profit being generated by any real business activity. It is merely a continuous, desperate redistribution of new capital to old capital to desperately maintain the illusion of overwhelming success.
And how does the casino map onto that flow?
The casino utilizes the continuous torrential new money flowing in from the losers to seamlessly pay the returns to the occasional winners. It is a continuous, circular, perfectly balanced flow of capital.
But the casino actually has a real product, the odds.
The crucial defining difference is that the casino utilizes the cold, hard laws of probability and the house edge to absolutely guarantee that the massive inflow of loser money will always eventually exceed the outflow of winner money over a long enough timeline.
They don't have to fake the numbers.
They don't have to lie, fabricate documents, or aggressively recruit new investors like a desperate Ponzi operator. They simply have to open their massive air-conditioned doors and let the predictable flaws of human psychology do all the heavy lifting.
And speaking of human psychology and those massive doors, let's talk about the physical space you are actually standing in when this wealth transfer occurs. This brings us to Section 6, environmental deception.
The architecture itself.
We are talking about the concept of architectural hypnosis. The Marina Bay Sands, as we mentioned in the intro, was designed by Moshe Safdie, an incredibly famous visionary architect. And our source text points out some very specific, highly deliberate design choices on the actual gaming floor.
Very deliberate.
There are absolutely no windows allowing you to see the outside world. There are no clocks anywhere on the walls. I want to ask you, the listener, to search your memory. Have you ever walked into a massive casino or even a sprawling modern shopping mall and realized after an hour that you feel slightly disoriented?
You lose your bearing.
Right? Maybe you've totally lost your sense of true north, but at the exact same time, you feel incredibly comfortable, safe, and entirely unbothered by that disorientation.
That highly specific, contradictory feeling you are describing is not a random accident of floor planning. It is a highly engineered, deliberately induced psychological state.
How do they induce that?
We have to analyze the visual psychology of the architecture first and foremost. The text highlights the casino's specific, overwhelming use of non-regular geometric shapes, a distinct total absence of sharp 90-degree corners, and the pervasive, inescapable use of a very specific moonlight yellow ambient lighting hue.
Let's break that down. Why does a lack of sharp corners matter to my brain? If I'm looking at a blackjack table, why do I care if the room is a giant circle instead of a square?
Because it speaks directly to the ancient primal wiring of the human brain. Sharp angles, stark right-degree intersections, and harsh, jagged lines subconsciously signal tension, artificiality, and potential physical hazard to our lizard brain.
Like jagged rocks in nature.
Think of the sharp edge of a cliff or a jagged rock. Curves, sweeping arcs, and circular flowing designs, like the massive vaulted atrium design of the sands, are interpreted by the subconscious as entirely organic, calming, and fundamentally womb-like.
So you literally feel safer.
When you combine this curved architecture with the warm, low-intensity, shadowless moonlight yellow lighting, the environment actively suppresses the brain's natural fight-or-flight response.
And then there's the whole no clocks, no windows thing.
The infamous lack of windows and clocks is not a myth. It is a classic, highly aggressive tactic designed to completely sever the player's biological connection to the natural circadian rhythm and the relentless passage of mundane time.
They want you to forget the outside world exists.
They want to forcefully induce what psychologists call a flow state, a deep hypnotic trance where the stressful outside world of demanding jobs, familial responsibilities, and the setting sun simply ceases to exist.
It's essentially a massive sensory deprivation tank, but instead of floating in salt water, you are floating in a sea of flashing lights designed to drain your wallet. But it's not just what you see, right? It's what you hear.
The soundscape is vital.
The source text makes a fascinating note that the ambient noise level of the casino floor is engineered to sit exactly around 70 decibels.
This is a phenomenal, deeply observant detail highlighted by the author of the text. We call this auditory psychology, and it relates incredibly closely to what urban planners and retail psychologists call the Gruen transfer.
Named after Victor Gruen.
Yes, the inventor of the shopping mall. The Gruen transfer is that precise psychological moment a consumer loses track of their original rational intention.
Like, I'm just going to spend $50 and leave.
And instead becomes hyper-suggestible to the surrounding environment. So we must ask, why exactly 70 decibels? Think about it logically. If the casino were dead, library silent, what would happen?
I imagine people would get incredibly bored.
Yeah.
Or sleepy. Or they would feel socially awkward, like everyone could hear them lose.
Exactly. Absolute silence causes deep, uncomfortable introspection. You can hear your own thoughts. You suddenly realize you are losing money you can't afford to lose. You get tired, the adrenaline fades, and you want to go up to your hotel bed.
Okay, so silence is bad. What about the other extreme?
On the absolute other end of the auditory spectrum, if the floor was consistently hitting 100 decibels, like standing next to a speaker at a heavy metal concert or walking past an active construction site, what happens to the human body?
It's overwhelming, stressful. You get a headache, and your only instinct is to escape the noise.
Correct. Deafening, chaotic noise triggers an immediate cortisol release. It causes acute physiological stress and a desperate urge to flee.
So 70 decibels is the sweet spot.
70 decibels is the meticulously calculated Goldilocks zone. It is the perfect, continuous, unbroken hum of mild, highly stimulated arousal.
What goes into that hum?
The constant rhythmic clatter of plastic chips, the specific musically engineered major key chords of the slot machine payouts, the muffled distant cheers of an alleged winner, it all blends together to create a hypnotic ambient soundscape.
And what is that soundscape telling your brain?
It constantly, relentlessly suggests to your subconscious mind, somewhere, someone right now is winning big, and if you just keep playing, you could be next. It keeps the brain hovering in a perpetual state of low-level, continuous dopamine anticipation without ever crossing over into the realm of sensory exhaustion.
And into this perfectly calibrated, curved 70-decibel womb, they drop the famous amenities. The text explicitly notes two things.
The drinks and the smoking.
Alcoholic drinks are heavily subsidized or entirely free for active players, and smoking is highly permissive directly on the gaming floor, which is rare in modern indoor spaces.
We must immediately and forcefully reframe these amenities. They are not acts of corporate hospitality. They are not examples of the casino's boundless generosity.
They're a trap.
They are highly calculated, incredibly low-cost bribes designed entirely as investments in maximizing player inertia.
Player inertia. That's a great term. You mean simply keeping the physical body anchored in the chair.
Exactly. An object at rest tends to stay at rest. Why is the alcohol free? Because alcohol is a powerful chemical depressant that directly lowers the brain's executive function.
It makes you sloppy.
It severely impairs rational, long-term risk assessment and significantly reduces behavioral inhibition. A slightly inebriated player who has lost their fear of consequences is a exponentially more profitable player.
And the smoking policy.
If a player has a severe nicotine addiction and the casino enforces a strict ban on indoor smoking, what must that addicted player do every 45 minutes to an hour?
They are forced to get up, physically leave the table, walk all the way across the floor, go outside, and stand in the heat to have a cigarette.
Yes. And that seemingly innocent 5-minute walk to the exit is absolutely lethal to the casino's business model.
Because it wakes them up.
It forcefully breaks the hypnotic 70-decibel trance. It completely stops the rapid betting rhythm. It exposes the player to fresh air, natural light, and cold reality, which might prompt a sudden moment of clarity where they realize they've just lost $1,000 and should probably go back to their hotel room.
So just let them smoke at the table.
By generously allowing them to smoke directly at the table, the casino completely eliminates the biological and spatial friction that would otherwise pull the player away from the machine. They are literally keeping the raw biological material pinned to the extraction point.
The level of psychological warfare is staggering. And this brings us to a really crucial part of the breakdown, Section 7, the great filter and the $10 hook. We've talked about the environment, but how do they control exactly who gets into that environment?
This is a fascinating mechanism.
The source material explains that there is a fascinating two-step screening process just to get to those tables where you can smoke and drink in your yellow-lit bubble. Step 1 is the barrier.
The entry fee.
Local resident citizens of Singapore must pay a steep $150 entry fee simply to walk through the front doors. Foreigners, tourists flashing an international passport walk right in, completely free of charge.
There's a very specific reason for that.
Now, I have to push back on this on behalf of the listener because it seems to contradict everything we've established. You just spent 30 minutes explaining how breathtakingly greedy this machine is, how it wants every dime.
And it does.
So a tourist gets past this entry fee for free. And then step 2 is that the casino hands them a free membership card. And preloaded on that card is a complimentary $10 credit. If the casino is a ruthless, highly optimized extraction machine that relies on a mathematical edge, why on earth are they literally handing out free money to every single person who walks in off the street?
It is the ultimate psychological Trojan horse. And to fully unpack its devastating effectiveness, we first have to dissect that $150 local entry fee.
Okay, let's start there.
We will conceptualize this as the local sin tax. This fee accomplishes several highly strategic, overlapping goals simultaneously. First, it acts as a very convenient political shield.
It looks good to the voters.
Exactly. Allowing the local government to claim to voters that they are actively protecting vulnerable low-income populations from the ravages of gambling addiction. But economically, from the casino's perspective, it creates a brutal, highly efficient, and automated barrier to entry for low-income locals.
Because $150 is a lot of money just to get inside.
The cold truth is that the casino absolutely does not want poor locals in their building. They take up valuable physical space on the crowded floor. They bet in very small, irritating denominations. They drink the free alcohol, and they are mathematically unprofitable to service given the high overhead.
They act as a drag on the system.
Yeah.
They want the high-value targets.
Correct. The $150 fee perfectly automatically filters the local population for two exact highly profitable archetypes. Archetype A, the affluent, wealthy local for whom a $150 cover charge is completely negligible.
Meaning they have plenty of money to lose.
Meaning, by definition, they possess a massive bankroll available to lose. And archetype B, the foreign tourist who sails through the door for free.
Why are tourists so valuable?
Tourists are universally the most prized prey in the gaming industry because they are severely time limited. They are on vacation for exactly 4 days. They do not have the luxury of time to play conservatively or wait for the right moment.
They have to cram it all in.
They are going to play hyper-aggressively, making incredibly large, mathematically risky bets to maximize their emotional thrill before their flight home. The filter is working perfectly, ensuring only the most shareable sheep make it into the pen.
Okay, so the filter ensures the room is packed with the right kind of wallets. But that still doesn't explain the free $10. The hook. Why give them capital?
The free $10 is absolutely not a gift, nor is it capital in any real sense. It is a highly weaponized psychological trigger. The source text specifically notes that this complimentary $10 is usually heavily restricted.
You can't just cash it out and buy lunch.
Exactly. It is forced to be played on specific, pre-programmed electronic slot machines. This entire interaction is a masterclass in modern behavioral economics, relying simultaneously on three incredibly powerful cognitive biases. First, we must examine the endowment effect.
The endowment effect. I've heard the term, but let's unpack that for the listener. How does it work?
The endowment effect is a well-documented psychological phenomenon which dictates that human beings will irrationally assign a significantly higher value to an object merely because they possess it.
Give me an example.
If I offer to sell you a coffee mug, you might value it at $5. But if I give you the mug for free and then ask to buy it back from you, you will suddenly demand $10 for it.
Just because it's mine now.
The moment the casino hands you that sleek plastic card and says, "I have $10, your brain instantly rewires itself. It no longer views those credits as the casino's promotional budget. It is now your money. You have been endowed with it. It belongs to you.
Right, it feels like I'm playing with house money, but my brain has tricked me into thinking it's my house money now.
Exactly, and that subtle shift in ownership leads directly and disastrously into the second most devastating cognitive bias, loss aversion.
Which means we hate losing more than we like winning.
Behavioral economists, notably Kahneman and Tversky, have mathematically proven that the psychological pain a human feels from losing something is roughly twice as powerful as the pleasure they experience from gaining something of the exact equal value.
So a $10 loss feels like a $20 loss.
Finding a crisp $10 bill on the sidewalk feels nice. It's a minor boost to your day. But having a $10 bill fall out of your pocket and watching it blow down a storm drain feels terrible. It ruins your afternoon.
So when I sit that slot machine with my free $10,
When you sit down at that brightly lit, pre-programmed slot machine and you inevitably quickly lose that $10, because remember, the machine is mathematically rigged to ensure you lose it, your brain registers a sharp, acute, wholly disproportionate sense of loss. It feels exactly as if someone just reached into your pocket and stole $10 from you.
and what is the natural human reaction when someone steals from you? You get angry. You want justice. You want to get it back.
The pain of the loss completely overrides your rational executive brain, forcing a deep, compulsive desire to win it back and restore the cosmic balance.
And that's when you reach for your wallet.
This emotional spike prompts you to reach into your real physical wallet, pull out a real $100 bill, and feed it into the machine to correct the perceived injustice of losing your endowed $10. The initial $10 was never meant to be won. It was an emotional landmine, carefully buried in your path, designed entirely to blow up your rationality.
And beyond the emotional manipulation, it also serves a very basic mechanical purpose. It gets you to agree to take the card in the first place.
Yes, which brings us to the third bias, the foot-in-the-door technique. This is a classic, decades-old sales manipulation tactic.
Like a salesman getting you to say yes to a small thing first.
If I walk up to you on the street and aggressively ask you for $100, your defenses will flare and you will say no. But if I offer you something completely free and just ask you to do me a tiny favor and fill out a quick form, you will likely say yes.
You agree to the card.
By getting you to agree to this tiny, seemingly beneficial, low-stakes interaction accepting the free card, your psychological defenses are fundamentally lowered, making you exponentially more likely to agree to a much larger, incredibly damaging interaction, depositing hundreds of dollars of your own hard-earned money just minutes later.
They just want to break down that first wall.
The casino corporation doesn't care about the $10. They only care about the conversion rate. What specific percentage of people who take the $10 hook end up depositing $500 of their own money? The $10 is simply a customer acquisition cost, nothing more and nothing less.
which perfectly seamlessly transitions us into Section 8, the currency of illusion and the digital leash. So you've taken the hook, you've lost the $10, and you pull out that real $100 bill. But you don't play with it. The system won't let you.
You have to convert it.
Right. The source text talks extensively about the physical chips on the table and the digital chips loaded onto that membership card. Why mandate the conversion? Why can't I just bet my $100 bill?
Because if you bet the $100 bill, you would feel the weight of what you are doing. We must analyze the psychology of abstraction. The core concept here is called the pain of paying.
I feel that acute pain every time I buy groceries or pay rent.
We all do. It is a biological reality. When you physically hand over hard cash, or even when you watch a number decrease in your checking account to pay for a necessity, it triggers a literal, measurable pain response in the insular region of the brain.
Actual pain.
Yes. The casino's primary overriding objective is to surgically sever the emotional and psychological connection between you and your capital. Pushing a stack of brightly colored, heavy plastic discs across a green felt table feels fundamentally biologically different than handing over a stack of crisp, real $100 bills to a stranger in a suit.
It feels like a board game. It feels like Monopoly money.
Exactly. It deeply infantilizes the transaction. It turns devastating, life-altering financial loss into a trivial, colorful game. The physical chip abstracts the money one crucial layer deep.
What about the electronic chips?
But the electronic chip, the digital balance hovering on your membership card or the screen of the slot machine, abstracts it in 2 layers deep. It ceases to be money entirely. It becomes nothing but glowing pixels on a screen.
Just numbers in a video game.
The source text also makes a brilliant, subtle distinction between one-way promotional chips, like the initial $10 hook that can only be bet and never directly cashed out, and two-way standard chips. The one-way chips force mandatory engagement. They are fake money that can only be magically transformed into real money by running a brutal gauntlet of mathematical disadvantage.
And that membership card you were holding, it isn't just a digital wallet holding those pixels. The text implies it's an incredibly sophisticated tracking device. It's what you called earlier a digital leash.
The membership card is your digital ghost. The exact moment you insert that card into a slot machine or hand it to a pit boss before you sit at a blackjack table, you are actively plugging your physical, biological self directly into their mainframe.
Giving them the live feed of your behavior.
You are no longer a human being with a life and a family. You are a walking, breathing algorithm waiting to be milked. The card relentlessly tracks your customer lifetime value, or CLV.
Let's expand on that. What exactly goes into a CLV calculation? Because if I'm playing slots at 2 a.m. and I've had 3 whiskeys, is it just tracking my wins and losses? Or is it building a deeper profile on my impulse control?
It is tracking absolutely everything, building a terrifyingly comprehensive profile of your vulnerabilities. It monitors your exact win-loss ratios down to the penny. It tracks which specific game variants you prefer, which indicates your risk tolerance.
It knows if you like high stakes or low stakes.
It knows exactly what time of day you bet the most aggressively. Are you a desperate late-night chaser or an afternoon tourist? It knows exactly how many free drinks you've ordered and consumed.
And it connects all of this together.
It cross-references all this data instantaneously. If you somehow beat the odds and win too much, the algorithm instantly flags you for the covert YOLO AI surveillance we discussed earlier to see if you were cheating.
And what if I'm losing?
Conversely, if the system detects that you are losing heavily and approaching your historical threshold of walking away, the algorithm might automatically trigger a floor manager's tablet,
Oh, to intervene.
prompting them to approach you, call you by your first name, and offer you a free, lavish dinner, a comp, to keep your spirits artificially high, reset your emotional state, and ensure you return to the tables tomorrow to lose the rest of your trip budget. It is perfectly calibrated, deeply granular manipulation based on massive data sets.
The text also draws a very hard, distinct line between physical games and digital games, which seems relevant when we talk about algorithms.
This is a vital, non-negotiable distinction for anyone who ever walks onto a casino floor. Physical games like craps, the roulette wheel, or physical card baccarat rely on actual, observable Newtonian physics.
Like gravity and momentum.
While the rules and payouts are irrevocably tilted in the house's favor, a physical die bouncing on a physical felt table generates a true, chaotic, random outcome. It is ultimately auditable reality.
But a slot machine, which makes up the vast majority of the floor space, isn't bound by physics.
A modern slot machine is an absolute, unmitigated lie. It is nothing more than a highly optimized computer server wrapped in flashing lights and a fiberglass cabinet.
How does it actually determine who wins?
It operates on an RNG, a random number generator, which is a proprietary piece of code explicitly legally pre-programmed to pay out a highly specific, mathematically inescapable percentage over millions of iterations.
So the spinning wheels are fake.
The spinning reels you see on the screen, the near misses where two cherries line up and the third is just 1 inch away, these are completely, utterly meaningless visual effects. They are just a graphical user interface designed to give you the comforting illusion of participating in a mechanical, physics-based process.
So when is the outcome actually decided?
The actual definitive outcome of your spin was determined by the algorithm the exact microsecond your finger brushed the plastic button. Furthermore, as the text notes with cold economic logic, these machines require 0 highly paid dealers, 0 staff overhead to manage, and can run relentlessly, flawlessly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
It's to print money.
They are pure, undiluted profit engines. If you sit down to play a game with no human dealer, you are effectively just authorizing a direct, slow-motion transfer from your bank account to the casino's corporate servers, with extra steps added purely for entertainment value.
So we have built this terrifying, omnipotent, flawlessly optimized picture of the Marina Bay Sands. But we have to address the giant elephant in the room from the source text, Section 9, the anomaly.
This is where the optimization looks inconsistent on the surface.
Because in the middle of all this algorithmic milking, all this psychological manipulation, and all this systems theory, the text identifies a massive, glaring double standard in exactly how the casino operates its games.
Yes, the stark, undeniable divergence in game calibration.
Exactly. The text points out a massive operational difference between how a game of Texas Hold'em poker is run versus how games like Baccarat or Sic Bo are run on the main floor.
It's night and day.
The text explicitly notes, and we must be careful here to impartially, objectively report the author's exact observations from the provided autopsy report, that the founders of the Las Vegas Sands Corporation, as well as the architect of the building, Moshe Safdie, are of Jewish descent.
Right. The text makes that observation.
It observed that Texas Hold'em, a game primarily favored and played by Western tourists and international professionals, is run with incredibly high, rigid standards of transparency, manual card shuffling, and strict procedural fairness.
Extremely by the book.
But Baccarat, the game overwhelmingly favored by the 90% ethnic Chinese demographic we discussed, is described by the author as being opaque, incredibly fast-paced, and seemingly designed to fool or disorient the player.
At totally different operational standards.
The author strongly implies that there might be a massive double standard at play here based on these cultural or ethnic lines. So what does this all mean?
We must immediately deploy a metacognitive autopsy on this specific, highly charged observation from the text. When confronted with this kind of data, we have to aggressively strip away the natural human tendency to look for emotional prejudice, ethnic favoritism, or grand conspiracies.
So we have to look past the human element completely.
We must view this divergence strictly, coldly, and exclusively through the lens of pure system optimization, game theory, and what corporate business strategists call product-market fit calibration.
Okay, so you were saying it's absolutely not a double standard born of some kind of cultural prejudice.
It is the exact complete opposite of prejudice. Prejudice is irrational. This is a terrifyingly rational, mathematically flawless application of the axioms of profit.
Axioms of profit. Break those down.
Axiom 1. The casino is, above all else, a profit maximization engine. Axiom 2. Different resources require fundamentally different harvesting tools.
Meaning the different types of players.
The casino floor is not a single homogeneous entity. It is a meticulously segmented, highly fragmented marketplace. They are offering two completely different products to two completely different demographic segments who just happen to be standing in the exact same air-conditioned building.
Let's break down those segments so we can see the logic. Let's look at segment A, the poker players.
Segment A, the Western or international professional poker player. What is their established psychological profile?
They're usually pretty intense.
They are highly analytical, they are inherently suspicious, they are buying a complex contest of skill against other players. They demand absolute, unquestionable, visibly verifiable procedural transparency.
Why do they need that transparency?
In game theory terms, Texas Hold'em is largely a player versus player game. The casino does not care who wins the hand. They do not have a stake in the outcome. They make their money simply by taking a small percentage, known as the rake, out of every single pot.
So the casino's only real incentive in the poker room is just to keep the game going as smoothly and fairly as possible.
Exactly. Their primary indispensable asset in the poker room is trust and institutional reputation. If a professional poker player suspects for even 1 microsecond that the deck is rigged, or if the shuffling procedures are opaque and hidden, they will not just leave the table.
They'll tell everyone.
They will go online, post on forums, and systematically destroy the casino's reputation globally. The entire, highly lucrative revenue stream from high-stakes poker would evaporate overnight. Therefore, in order to extract absolute maximum profit from Segment A, the casino must apply maximum unshakable procedural transparency. It is a business requirement, not a moral choice.
And what about Segment B? The massive 90% mass market playing baccarat on the main floor.
Segment B, the predominantly East Asian mass market and high roller demographic. What is their specific psychological profile according to the precise cultural targeting we discussed earlier?
They want the thrill, the luck.
They are fundamentally not looking for a slow, highly analytical, mathematically rigorous contest of skill. They are aggressively buying a high-speed, adrenaline-fueled experience of luck, fate, and the psychological flow of the gamble.
And the structure of the game is different, too.
Crucially, they are playing player versus house games where the casino has a guaranteed, mathematically proven edge on every single hand dealt.
So the casino's incentive structure is completely, fundamentally different here. They aren't just taking a rake. They are actively trying to beat the player.
Fundamentally different. The casino's singular goal in baccarat is to expose the player's bankroll to the house edge as rapidly, repeatedly, and efficiently as physically possible. In this segment, speed equals revenue.
So what if they did apply poker rules to baccarat?
If the casino were to suddenly halt a fast-paced game of baccarat to apply Texas Hold'em-style transparency, slowly, deliberately burning cards, theatrically showing every single hand motion to the cameras, constantly pausing the game to verify complex procedures, what would happen to the floor?
The game would slow to an absolute crawl. The excitement would die.
Yes. The target demographic would become profoundly, immediately bored. The quiet or the energetic flow of the table would completely die. The total volume of bets placed per hour would plummet off a cliff, and the casino would lose literally millions of dollars a day in potential mathematically guaranteed revenue.
So the opaqueness is intentional.
The opaque or fooling nature described critically by the text is not malicious ethnic discrimination. It is the deliberate, highly calculated removal of all procedural friction to maximize the speed of capital extraction.
So it's not a double standard at all. It's just two different formulas for two different equations.
This is the grand synthesis of the entire autopsy report we've examined today. It is a single, ruthlessly illogical, wholly unified standard of absolute capitalism.
They just adapt to whoever they're taking the money from.
The casino applies a precisely, flawlessly calibrated standard of perceived fairness, customized down to the psychological, cultural, and emotional expectations of each specific demographic, designed solely and exclusively to maximize the frictionless extraction of wealth from that exact group.
Poker gets transparency.
The analytical poker player gets rigorous transparency because transparency extracts their money best. The baccarat player gets blinding speed and the illusion of fate because speed and illusion extract their money best. The ethnic heritage of the corporate founders is completely irrelevant. Their mastery of global algorithmic capitalist extraction is absolute.
That is breathtakingly cynical, but mathematically and logically flawless. Which brings us to the end of our exhaustive journey today. We've walked through the digital gateway and surrendered our data.
The digital handshake.
We've survived the security theater. We've navigated the deliberate cone of silence. We've stared deeply into the engine room to see the math of gravity pulling bankrolls to zero.
We've seen it all.
We've seen how the curved architecture, the yellow lighting, the free alcohol, the weaponized $10 hooks, and the digital leashes all weave together into a seamless, inescapable web. You didn't just walk into a casino. You walked into a perfectly calibrated billion-dollar laboratory of human desire and vulnerability.
A machine operating perfectly.
But I want to connect this directly back to you, the listener. You might be thinking, why should I care about any of this if I never plan on setting foot inside a casino in Singapore or anywhere else?
Yeah.
You need to care because these same underlying principles, the frictionless digital payments that abstract the pain of paying, the weaponized loss aversion, the endless perfectly timed dopamine loops, the invisible panoptic algorithmic tracking of your every preference. These are absolutely not confined to the carpets of the Marina Bay Sands.
They are everywhere.
They're being deployed right now on the smartphone sitting in your pocket, in your favorite social media apps, and deeply embedded in the architecture of modern digital retail.
And that leads to the final, necessary, and deeply unsettling question we must all ask ourselves as we navigate the modern world.
What's the question?
If this highly calibrated, perfectly optimized extraction engine, a physical machine that systematically strips away wealth by ruthlessly exploiting our deepest cognitive flaws and cultural biases, is entirely legal, heavily regulated, and allowed to operate in plain sight under the friendly, smiling guise of entertainment.
What else is doing this?
Exactly. What other invisible systems in your daily life are doing the exact same thing? From the aggressive gamification of the stock market and slick retail investing apps that shower you with digital confetti when you trade, to the opaque algorithmic wage setting and behavioral tracking of the global gig economy.
How many are there?
How many immense systems are quietly running this exact same psychological software on you right now, continuously extracting your time, your data, and your capital without you ever even realizing you are sitting at the table?
A truly chilling thought to leave on. Look around you today, scrutinize the apps you use and the spaces you walk through, and see if you can spot the invisible architecture of extraction. Keep your eyes open, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.